Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast. And I wanted to ask you guys a question. Are you ready to learn about scrapes? Because I'm ready to learn about scrapes. So if you're on TikTok, I've got the scrape doctor himself, Mr. James Holm, coming on here to talk all about scrapes, talk about what the scrape doctor is, why his product is going to be different from the others, and maybe we've been doing scrapes all wrong this entire time. We're going to learn about it. You guys know that I've been learning throughout this entire thing, doing the podcast, getting to talk to all the amazing guests we've had, and this episode is going to be no different. So before we get into that with James, we got to get the partners out of the way. I am going to do this one a little bit longer. Probably once a month, I'm going to have an intro where I just lay everything out. And then the rest of them are going to be quick. So hopefully you guys stick with this. Don't just skip through it because I've got a lot of awesome deals for y'all. First up is going to be Working Class Bow Hunter. We've been partnered with them for a little bit now, and man, their stuff is just awesome. All right. Like, I'm wearing one of their hats right now. I've got a bunch of their shirts upstairs. If you want to get some Working Class Bow Hunter merch or listen to their podcast, go to workingclassbowhunter.com. You can do all of that. And then when you pick out whatever merch you want, use the code SEBHP15 to save you 15%. Next up is going to be Osseo Gear. So me and Joe have got some plans. He's going to be coming on later this summer to talk about early season tactics for us down here in the Southeast, regarding whitetails, how to get on them, maybe some stuff that we haven't learned yet, some stuff that, I'm definitely going to be using in the woods, and that you guys can use too. But Osseo Gear is the camo brand that I trust, and Joe is the owner of Osseo Gear. Osseo Gear is by far the best camo that I've ever used. I've used quite a few different brands, and I feel like Osseo is the quietest, best made, definitely the coolest camo pattern on there or on the market, and also the one that seems to hide you the best. I did get spotted a few times last season, and even though the deer acted a little cagey, they didn't know what I was. With the Raptor camo, it seems to work really well, so I plan on using Osseo Gear for as long as they're in business. So go head over to osseogear.com, use the code SEBH for 15% off. There is new product coming. If you follow the Facebook pages or the Instagram, you will see all the stuff that I share pretty much on the daily of what Osseo's got going on. So definitely check them out. And trust me, you will not be disappointed. Next up is going to be Summit tree stands. I've got my sticks together. I've got my hang on ready. I've got my climber ready with new cables because I'm a little weird. So I like to, make sure all my I guess it's not really weird, but I like to make sure all my stuff is, basically brand new before every season. Just that way I know that I can trust it. Not that you can't trust multiple seasons out of those cables, but I'm weird. All right. I'm just recently over my fear of heights. So being able to, trust my gear is extremely important. I know that's extremely important to all of you. So if you want to try out some Summit gear, go to summitstands.com. They've got hang-ons, sticks, climbers, safety harnesses, a ton of accessories. And actually, they are running a 20% off deal right now. What's bad is I should have that code for you. Actually, let me look it up real quick. I believe Hannah sent it to me. Let's see here. Going through. Where was it? I should have had this ready to go. So sorry, guys. Through April 10th through the 21st for Summit, use the code SPRING20, and that will save you 20% off all accessories. So Summit, I've been using Summit almost basically since I started hunting, and it's never let me down. I love it. Super quiet, super easy to pack in. And if you're listening to this a little bit later, say you got this episode late, or you just didn't have time to listen to it when it dropped, use the code SEBH15 to save 15% off site-wide. So I don't know if you can stack those codes. You could try it. I'm not saying it's definitely going to work, but you could try it. But yeah, go to summitstands.com, look at everything they have to offer, and make sure to utilize those codes. Next up is going to be the Bowtique. So I'm still working on trying to get some arrows to do a promo build with Mike. We have some ideas, some really cool stuff's going to be coming down the pipeline. But he actually I think it had to have been today, which is April 10th. He has partnered up with Working Class Bow Hunter as well. So he's got some Working Class Bow Hunter wraps. We have talked a little bit about doing some Southeastern Bow Hunter podcast wraps. That is kind of something that's going to happen a little bit later down the line, I believe. But yeah, definitely go support the boutique. Mike's an awesome dude. He makes a great arrow wrap and does awesome custom arrows as well. When you go to the boutiquellc.com, use the code SEBHP for free shipping. Bergie Bowsmith. Bergie has been hammering it out. He just got some new hats that dropped. Been sharing that on Facebook too. But he's also a dealer for all our favorite brands. So go to bergiebowsmith.com if you want your bow to get tuned to a T. And I'm talking bare shaft at 15 yards, bullet hole. He can do that for you. He also is obviously, like I said, a dealer for a lot of the brands that we use. And use the code SEBH10 for 10% off site wide. That also goes for 10% off of your bow tuning as well. So I really think you should utilize that, especially with TAC coming up soon. And, I don't know if any of y'all are going to the Nashville TAC. Me and my buddy Josh are going to be there that Sunday. We're getting there that morning pretty early, and then we're going to be leaving that afternoon. But hopefully we'll get to see you guys there. If y'all are planning on going, reach out to me. Let me know so we can meet up and maybe shoot, at least hang out for a little bit. That'll be awesome. So yeah, back to Bergie. Go check bergiebowsmith.com. Look at all the stuff he has to offer. Get your bow tuned by him. Next up is going to be G5 Outdoors. So I was talking with Brian today. Actually, this one's going to be G5 and Prime because there's some cool stuff coming. So at the time of this recording, my Prime form should be shipping out next week, and I am getting it in Recon Gray and Osteo Gear limbs, 70 pounds, 28-inch draw. Dude, I'm so excited. I can't wait. If I'm able to get it tuned and everything dialed in, sighted in, all of that before TAC, it's going to be there with me at TAC in Nashville. It's gonna be a beautiful bow. I've already shot the bow. It's gonna be it is literally the most comfortable bow that I've ever shot. That was at the shop over in Social Circle, but my bow is gonna be no different, just different colors. Dude, I'm so excited. I can't wait. So keep an eye out for that. We are actually, me and Ace Hardware Social Circle are going to be doing a promo video, not only for the bow, but to help promote them as well. So be on the lookout for that. But Prime Archery, they've got the new form. They've got the RVX 32 and 34 plus. Just a great, great company. They make, in my opinion, the most comfortable bows and most steady bows on the market. So please go check them out. If you're in the market for a new bow, head over to primearchery.com and go customize your bow right now. Back to G5. So obviously I made the switch a couple months ago. I've always been a huge fan of the Mega Meat. I have some plans to go hog hunting with Tim Knight this summer, and plan on using the T2 or the Dead Meat V2 on some hogs. We're going to see how that goes. I think with my draw length, my poundage, arrow weight, all that stuff, that a mechanical is going to do wonders on a hog. We'll see. But I trust G5 with all of my broadhead needs, ranging from a fixed blade like the Montec or the Montec M5. Or if you're like me and you really like mechanicals, the Mega Meat. I love the Mega Meat. Haven't shot the T2 yet. I have shot the Dead Meat V2. Those three mechanicals, in my opinion, are some of the best on the market. That Mega Meat leaves a red carpet, son. So I'm excited, man. 5 months till deer season. So we're going to definitely put the Prime form to work. We're going to put the Mega Meat to work. And in the meantime, we're going to be testing out some Dead Meat V2s and T2s. So head over to G5 Outdoors or to bergiebowsmith.com if you want to get some of those G5 broadheads. They got you covered in every single aspect. Next up is going to be dialed archery. So if you're watching this video, I don't know how the quality looks, but you can see behind me my proof right there. It's waiting on my bow to get here. As soon as my bow gets here, it's getting put on. And that is the dialed proof, the new sight that Dialed came out with this past year. And dude, it's amazing. The Arxos was always, in my opinion, the best sight there was, and they improved it dramatically. So head over to dialedarchery.com. They actually just did a new small batch drop, and I think it's based off of Masters. I think it's called like the Archers Collection or something like that. It's really cool, really, really cool. It's a very small batch. Go pick it up because I don't think they're gonna make that again. So definitely go support them. Ace Hardware Social Circle, like I mentioned before, going to be building my bow up there. But they can take care of all your needs from bow tuning to products. They carry all the major brands. They carry saddles, they carry tree stands, they carry targets, broadheads, arrows, everything you need. And that is in Social Circle, Georgia. So definitely go check them out. Be on the lookout for that promo video we're going to do. I'm very excited about that. Camo Dust is the next, I guess, partner. Camo Dust is all I use when it comes down to scent control. I actually need to order my 6-pack, either that or call Chris and see what's up if he wants to come back on again. I don't know. Probably just going to order the 6-pack, to be honest. Why, got to help support the smaller businesses, but they're actually growing a lot. They should be in Walmart here soon, from what I was told. And dude, I'm telling you, Camo Dust is the only thing I've ever used that's worked on a bad wind, and I still don't get winded. So definitely go check them out, camodust.com. Get the 6-pack. It'll last all season. And if you have any questions on that, just reach out to me or to Chris. Next up is going to be Boning Archery. So Boning Archery is a new one for us. This just happened maybe a month ago, 2 months ago. I don't know, but it's fresh, right? So Boning Archery has been around for 80 years, or 82, 81 years, something like that. They just came out with the new Atlas and Alpha vanes, which if you haven't seen those yet, if you're living under a rock and you don't follow the Bowtique or Arrows Anonymous or Chest Thumper Outdoors or any of those guys, get on Instagram, get on TikTok, go look at those pages and check out the new Boning Archery Alpha vane and Atlas vane. We all know about the Blazer vane. We all know about the X vane. Amazing vanes, but these new vanes they came out with are, I feel like, a step above. So if you want to go to boningarchery.com and get you some of those new vanes, use the code SEBHP 2025 to save 20% off. I think that is a great deal. You're going to save a lot of money by doing that. And yeah, man, they have all colors that we need. And they even allow you to customize vanes for yourself. Now, it's a little bit more pricey, but that code might still work. I'm not 100% sure. I need to ask Brad about that. But anyway, head over to boningarchery.com. Check out all the vanes that they've got. They've been around for 80-something years. I mean, dude, the proof is in the pudding with that. You know, they've staked their claim and they're holding on to it. Last but not least is going to be the Chase. That is my buddy Brock's YouTube channel. Turkey season for them starts, I think, this weekend, which at the time we're recording this is April 10th. So this weekend is going to be their opener, and I already know he's been calling me every day, and every single day he screams birds. And so the kid's on turkeys. It's going to be a good season for those guys. So go follow them, go subscribe to them. They're on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of that. Okay, that's all the partners. So before we get into it with James, man, look, Jesus is working in the world right now. I've seen a lot of people that publicly are professing their faith. I saw one thing the other day that said 6ix9ine now is professing his faith in Jesus, which is insane. That's honest. He's honestly one of the last people I ever expected to do that. So the Lord is working. If you haven't felt him pulling on your heart yet, open it up to him. Give him a chance. I'm telling you, because life changes dramatically when you surrender your life to Jesus. He's been working in my life, as you can see, some of all these new partners, and even the older partners that we built really solid relationships with. None of that would have happened without him. So please go read your Bible. If you don't have one, go get one. If you have any questions about it, reach out to me. I'd love to talk about it. We've had a couple episodes where we talk about faith, and those are some of my favorites. So I'm pleading with you. I'm pleading, please just give him a chance. All right. The world's going crazy. And, you know, we need him. We need him now more than ever. And one of my favorite Bible verses, I'll leave you guys with this, is I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. So I tell myself that whenever I'm struggling with stuff. I even say that when I'm in the deer stand sometimes, you know, and I'm getting nervous or overthinking stuff. And I think of that and it brings perfect peace. So, yeah, preacher moment. Intro's done. That's all the partners. Please go support them. Make sure you go follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify. Leave me a review so I know what you guys are thinking. Maybe some guests you might want to have on. Go follow Facebook, Instagram, all of that. Help support us. And more information coming on the shirts and more information coming on the 3rd annual SEBH bow shoot in July. Once I get more info on what's going to be happening with that, I will let you guys know. So once again, let's get into it with the Scrape Doctor, James Holm. If you're on TikTok, you know this man. If not, get on TikTok and figure out who he is. If you listen to Working Class Bow Hunter, you heard that he got mentioned recently in an episode. And man, we got the Scrape Doctor, Mr. James Holm, on the podcast. I am a huge fan of scrapes. I wish I knew how to use them better. Unfortunately, and I'm just going to be totally vulnerable here, back when I used to think the Rompola buck was real, I followed a lot about Mitch Rompola. And one of the things, this was early on in my, I guess, hunting career, right? Didn't know what a scrape was. I thought it's pretty bad, man. When I first started, I thought scrapes was a rub. So like I'm listening to this stuff and I'm hearing people talk about scrapes. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. I had no idea. So I started listening to what Mitch was doing. And I don't know if what he was doing would work. I mean, Troy Pottinger does it and he has really good success with that stuff. But scrapes has become a big, big thing for me. And we were just talking that you've got an entire system. So before we dive into that, can you tell people like who don't know about the Scrape Doctor? Can you tell them who you are, kind of how you got that name and how you got to where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I tell a lot of people when they ask about the mock scrapes is, how long have you been making these mock scrapes? Well, I made my first one in 1985. So I've been doing this for just a little while.
Yeah.
So that, and back then I got told that doesn't work. You're never going to make that work. It'll never work. The deer won't come to those. You're crazy. You're dumb. Don't do that. So anyway, fast forward all the way to now. Made a couple of stops along the way with some other companies and done some other things. And in the last couple of years, I've decided to just take this thing out on my own. We've developed our own, that the Scrape Magic is our own thing, synthetic preorbital gland that has just blown people away when they get it. You heard the Tony Washnock thing. I don't know I didn't hear exactly what he said. I didn't get to that point yet in the podcast, but I have the whole video to repost from the tail when he got attacked by the buck, or charged by the buck. So,
yeah, I think that's what because I've listened to Working Class Bow Hunter religiously, right? I mean, kind of the whole reason you can see the hat,
I see it. Yeah.
But they're kind of like Kurt and I have become pretty good friends over the past couple of years, and the whole reason I even started doing this. So like when that came out and I heard Tony talking about that, and then I heard him name drop you, I'm like, well, wait a minute, I know that. And then so I reached out to you. I was like, dude, we need to do an episode because I like to talk about things that work, and I also like to talk about things that might be a little, I'm not going to say controversial, but out of the box. And then you basically told me like, dude, what I do is going to blow your mind. And I'm like, save it for the episode. So here we are. So, all right. So you've been doing scrapes since 1985. That means I just turned 30 and I was born in 95. So you've been doing scrapes for 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Have you noticed how long did it take for you to sort of figure out like the trick to them?
A long time. When we first started all this, the only thing that was out there really was tinks. It was the first commercially produced thing that we could get readily. That was easy to get. You could go to the hardware store or the sporting goods store in our local town, and we could get it from them. And then I started to run traps with a guy, an old guy, and he said, you got to start thinking like an animal and stop thinking like a person. He said, you got to start talking like an animal he said, it's the same kind of thing you're doing with these traps. You've got to talk to these deer if you want them to listen. Well, it kind of started there with the whole, it's a communication thing. It's not anything more than that. In a nutshell, that's as simple as it is these deer are all communicating. So, and that's the short answer of the whole mock scrape thing is that's what they're doing is talking to each other.
Yeah.
So it's not, and it's got honestly, very little to do with the rut. It's the rest of the year that really matters in our scrapes in the mocks. So yeah, 40 years. That's how long. Yeah, quite a while. Most people's dads most people's dads were my age, you know what I mean? So yeah. I have kids your age, so yeah.
Oh, well, I hope I don't make you feel old. I mess with my mom all the time and be like, hey, you remember 30 years ago when I was born? And she's like, shut up. I'm like, hey, if I don't give you crap, who will?
Well, so, you can't make me feel old when you are old, you are old. It is what it is.
Hey, what's bad is, man, I was telling my wife last night, and this has nothing to do with hunting, but since we're talking about this, I picked my daughter up yesterday. She's 9 years old, probably 55, 60 pounds, something like that. And I went to go pick her up, and dude, I did something to my back. This is the second time in a week this has happened since I turned 30. And I'm like, I think that 10 years of skateboarding when I was younger is finally catching up to me because I'm in a ton of pain. Thankfully, I don't feel it now, but Yeah, I'm starting to notice a couple of things sort of start going downhill a little bit. So, um, I know I'm not old, but I feel it some days. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
I get it. Uh, I get it. So
But
yeah, we're that's where we're at with that. And then and I've got a full line of products. I'm not sure exactly what you went and looked at, but we've got the full line. We've got ropes. I've got two different hemp ropes, and then I've got our poison ivy, which is designed more like a real grapevine, very rigid and heavy. Uh, got some new drags. We just introduced some new drags.
hmm.
They're just short. They're 12-inch, roughly 12-inch hemp ropes, small little hemp ropes that you can use as a drag with our estrus or with our scrape magic as a trailing scent, a leading scent. Then just hang them up, leave them.
So
Like,
I'm gonna give you a rundown of everything leading up to my knowledge of scrapes right now.
okay.
When I first started my very first hunt, I was with a buddy of mine and he had a bottle of Tinks, doe and estrus, just like you were talking about.
Yeah.
And we walk in, we're heading to the blind, and he gets about 20, maybe 30 yards from the blind and sprays every couple steps a spot right in front of it, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not a scrape. It's kind of like a drag line in a
Yeah.
sense, but I had no idea what he was doing. And next thing you know, the sun comes up, this year and a half old buck shows up, and I shoot him. And I'm like, oh, that's what you have to do. So for like a year, that's what I was doing. Had no results. I don't know why. I don't know if it's where I was hunting. And then I started diving into it more. I realized that a scrape is not a rub and a rub is not a scrape. And
Right.
dove into it a little more and realized, okay, so when I'm walking through the woods, if I see, a patch of bare dirt and it looks like something's been pawing in it, and then there's a
Yeah.
branch that hangs down, that's probably a scrape. Well, then
Yeah.
I found out about mock scrapes. And I think I've used at least 6 or 7 different products. And out of all of those scrapes I've done, I've had one that was being used all season that I never had to add anything to after the first making of it. And
Right.
I think that was the first time I was like, okay, whatever I did here worked. And what was funny about it is I started it, I think it was 2 summers ago on this one property I had by my house. There was it's a power line. It's got some overhanging branches every 30, 40 yards.
Yeah.
And in front of one of my stands, I saw this overhanging branch. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go do that. So scrape the ground, poured a little bit of I don't remember if it was doe, like regular doe pee, or if it was maybe some dominant buck. I forget what I used, but I remember putting a preorbital scent on the branch. And I had the camera facing that. And it was like, dude, that night I had does, I had young bucks, I had one of my target bucks showing up hitting it, and I'm like, oh, that's what I have to do, right?
Yeah.
So I take that same exact stuff, go to a different spot, do the same exact thing, nothing touched it. So I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I guess these deer are more finicky than these deer are, or maybe it was a topography thing, and I think that's been the biggest struggle for me is figuring out when I make a mock scrape where to do it because I've heard 2 different things. I've heard flat ground and I've heard ridge tops. So,
And neither one of those is wrong.
okay,
Um, so go ahead and finish what you were saying, and we'll go back to that flat ground ridge top thing.
got it. Yeah, I mean, that's basically where I'm at now. I mean, I used to think I could just make a random scrape anywhere.
Right.
Didn't even have to be near a trail. Didn't have, it could be in the thickest stuff possible. And if I just rake out the ground and spray this stuff, all the deer are going to come to it. And I just figured out that's not the case.
Right.
I've used synthetics. I've used naturals. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that's kind of where I'm at. I love talking about them, but I don't know them as well as I would like to. So
Right.
this episode, I am all ears and I want to learn as much as I can, especially if it's out of the box stuff, because I love doing stuff like that. So
Right.
that's my understanding of it. So
Well,
how misinformed am I?
I don't know that I would say that you're misinformed. And the spot that you just described, you're still hunting that spot that you were just
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, the
Okay.
target buck disappeared, but I know that scrape is still there. I was just there, and surprisingly, it's open. So
Okay. Right. And it's because it's probably the communal scrape. They probably hit it year round. It's probably
mhm.
a constant thing. I do run a camera on it all the time.
I did. I'm currently in the process of transitioning cameras. So
Okay.
there's nothing over there right now. It's a whole long story. We'd be here for like an hour, but um, at the moment, no. But in the next couple weeks, I should.
Yeah, and I would get one on there. And then honestly, my scrapes would go from that one. All my mocks would lead away from that one. I would walk the trails and I would look for old natural scrapes that lead away from and come
Mhm.
uh, to that one scrape because that's probably the hub. That's
Okay.
probably the main place.
Let me
And
ask you this. I don't mean to cut you off, but you just made me remember. Okay, so at that same spot, right? Made that mock scrape. They're hitting it all year. Literally 15 to 20 yards up the power line, there was a natural scrape that
yeah,
the biggest buck, like I said, he's gone. I don't know what happened to it, but at the time, the biggest buck on the property made that scrape.
okay.
Is that normal? Does that make sense to have two scrapes 20 yards apart?
Yeah, and honestly,
Okay.
if it were my spot and I found that scrape 20 yards away, somewhere in the middle, probably 10 yards, right dead between that scrape and that scrape, I would have put another scrape.
Hmm.
And then went another 20 yards beyond the one he made and made another scrape. And another scrape, another 50 yards beyond that. I'm not joking you. I'd be from his one natural scrape, I would make at least six more to compete with that. And then as soon as he made another one, I would take one of his. I would put my stuff in his scrape and leave that
Mm.
natural one that he made open, thinking he's got competition now that's decided to move directly into his territory. He'll blow that place open. He'll
Huh.
start to get all those scrapes now on a regular basis. He won't leave. He'll hang around there looking for that other buck because why? Because he's going to whoop on him. And plus you've got all the does coming to that communal scrape. Don't forget that. So you've
Hmm.
still got all these other deer coming. And now there's another buck in there that he doesn't want to have there. So he's going to hang out and hang out and hang out, go back and forth from scrape to scrape.
Man, you got my wheels turning now. I never even thought of that because I did end up when I saw that scrape, I did put the same exact scent that I used in the mock scrape in that
Yeah.
scrape, and he was tearing it up. I mean, honestly, surprisingly, down here in Georgia, where are you out of? What state are you in?
I'm on Michigan, northern Michigan.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool, cool. One of my best friends lives up there. Wow, so you probably know all about the Rompola stuff, don't you?
Yeah, I actually live about 30 miles north of him.
No way. Oh
Yeah.
man, we might have to touch on that a little later. But
I held it. I had the rack in my hands when he killed it.
okay,
The year
well,
right after he killed it,
do you
it
think
was
it's
just
real?
I held it in my hands. It was a skull plate and a rack. I mean, I had it in my hands. It was as real as anything could be. I
Huh.
was it now. Look, all the rest of the controversy that goes with it, I have no clue. But I
Yeah.
can tell you the antlers were real. I held them, and you know what I mean. I touched them. So yeah. So yeah,
Huh.
I honestly my opinion is it's real, and everything about it was real. That's my opinion. You know what I mean? And it is what it is.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about this off air because I do not need to go down that rabbit hole again. I've done it plenty of times.
It causes a
Um,
lot of controversy and a
it
lot of hurt,
does.
and
Yeah,
and
I did an
opinions are
episode on that
opinions.
last year, man, and it I could send you screenshots of the YouTube comments. That's the
Go
only
on.
the only video I have out there that's like tons of comments and people just going back and forth. And I've been on the fence about it. I finally
Yeah,
said, you know what? I'm not even going to give it my time. I don't know. I was literally 3 years old when that deer supposedly got killed. So
yeah,
I have no skin in the game.
yeah. And
But
other than I saw it with my eyes, you know what I mean. That's all I really have in it either. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It doesn't matter, and I don't. It's to me, it's real. You
yeah.
can't. Did he let some weird genetically thing go? I don't know. We'll talk about it not on the air though. I can tell you that because it's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Okay. We'll save that for after this. Anyway, back to
Absolutely.
scrapes. Um, I don't even remember what I was talking about now.
You were talking about the one buck that made the scrape, and now your wheels are turning because I said to make
Yes.
a move out of
Yes.
scrapes.
So what I noticed on that spot was a lot of my other spots, I'd see rubs and I'd see some scrapes here and there. But when I this past season for sure, um, the amount of rubs that I saw after I put the scent in his scrape was insane. I
Yeah.
mean, like the whole woods that's behind the power lines just torn up every 20, 30 feet. There's a little sapling that's just torn apart.
Yeah.
So I guess I did that inadvertently without really knowing. I mean, I kind of, like I said, I did go into it thinking, all right, I'm going to put this scent in here to piss them off. And I guess it worked. So,
Yeah.
well, that's my extent to scrapes. So now I want to hear your system. I want to hear the process, and if you can, how you got to this.
I just gave you kind of part of the process there. You found that you've got a good scrape that's probably, like I said, the hub. It's probably the main scrape, the communal scrape. So you branch off from that one and you go both directions away from it. You find you find the trails. You do it the smart way. Don't try to change. Don't try to reinvent the wheel or build a better mousetrap. Use the one you got and catch all the mice. Um, Follow that edge where they're already going, and then find the trail where it comes out into that power line. Now walk up that trail and just walk a little. What you'll know right away if it's a decent trail to continue down or not. If it's a heavy path that there a lot of deer are using with good overhangs, spray your overhanging limbs. Never mind the scrape on the ground. It's about that licking branch.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I do that's way different than probably 80% of the guys is everybody wants to spray all their licking branches way too high. I spray everything about chest height and below. Waist height is better, honestly, because mature deer are 39 inches at the shoulder. They're just not real big. They
Yeah.
look big. They weigh 300 pounds and they got this big long neck and fat neck with a huge rack on their head. So yeah, of course they look big, but they're just not. If a mature buck walks up to you, to a person, their nose is going to hit you about the bottom of your sternum. That's all the bigger they are. They're just not that big. Everybody wants them to be a bull moose, and they're not. They just are not that big. So if you're spraying branches that are above your eyes, them deer can't reach it. They have to go up in the air. That's when you see them up on their hind feet, up in the branches. I don't want my bucks or any of my deer going up off their front feet to chase a licking branch. I want it in their face. I want them to come up, do what they're supposed to do with it, and move on to the next one. I don't want them. If they want to linger there for however long they want, that's fine. But I don't want them chasing it around. I want them to be able to work it and do what they came there to do. I'm about relieving frustration for them, not creating more, because the scrape magic has stuff in it that already creates frustration and aggression and that kind of thing, along with that communication part. So I'm already aggravating them with the scrape magic. So I give them somewhere to work that frustration out on a rope or one of my vines or a natural vine, whatever the case may be.
So
And then just move. I have a lot of scrapes really close together. They're strategically strung out in direct lines and arcs. It's a whole. I would have to almost draw you a picture on paper to show you what I'm saying.
You talking about kind of like a horseshoe shape?
No, not really. Kind of more of so you take a straight line this way, and then you get an arc on the outside of that. So then you've got a space in between that.
Oh.
Kind of like half of an eyeball. Picture it like half of an eyeball.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at right there. Well, inside that half of an eyeball, that's the buffer. That's the calm spot. That's where the deer go and hang out, waiting to go from scrape to scrape. That's the area they're using to cross and to lay. And this is the stuff that I do, that I talk about, that's outside the box, that make people do what you just did. You went, huh? I get a lot of that with this, huh? No kidding. But the proof is in the pudding. I have deer that will stay in this soft spot or the buffer zone. I call it the buffer zone. They stay right there. You can walk past them and they'll see you and they'll stay right there. they'll run off to the edge of it and hang there until you go by, and then they come right back in. They won't leave those scrapes.
Huh.
Just pictures and videos prove it again and again and again that they just come right back as soon as I go by.
That's wild, dude. Because especially in Georgia, our deer are cagey as all get out. And
Yep.
the only experience I have of that not happening when I show up is the same spot I was just telling you about where the scrape was at.
Yeah.
I went there so much because, we can bait down here. So I was feeding every single week, trying to bring as much protein to this buck as I could, especially after he broke his main beam in like middle of summer. I'm like, dude, you're getting all the protein, all the mineral. I need you to regrow that as quick as you could. He never did. But yeah, man, I would go up there. I even named a deer Vicky. I named a doe Vicky because she just I'd pour the corn out or put the food out and they'd hear it. They were bedded up somewhere, probably across the street, and they would hear my truck. They'd hear me put the food out, and I'd watch them come running through the woods, just trotting along, and they'd stand there 20 yards away from me while I'm walking bags of corn to it. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this isn't normal. I've had them follow me. I literally had those deer follow me when I was tracking a deer that I shot. And I'm like, I'm kind of getting nervous at that point because it's dark. All I'm seeing is their eyes if I turn around. And I'm like, y'all are too comfortable. Like I can't have 15 does following me, wondering what I'm doing over here when I'm looking for one that I shot.
Right.
It's cool, but so how do you? So if you've got the buffer zone, you're saying that when you've got that half, let's just call it a half circle. You got that half circle of a scrape line, and those deer are in that buffer zone. They usually don't bump out. Is it because the scrapes are around and they're just waiting?
It's because what it is it creates this false sense of comfort. They get very relaxed. We get gobs and gobs of pictures of these deer will come in under these scrapes and they'll bed right there. They just lay down. A whole group of does and fawns will come in and they'll bed. And they'll stay there for half the night. And then they get up, the does will work the ropes and they leave. And it happens a lot. So I think a lot of it is, it's just a comfort zone. They're comfortable there. You go to this whole, if you flip it to the side of the guys that preach no intrusion, no intrusion, no intrusion, stay out, stay out. Mm-hmm. I'm the exact opposite of that, honestly. I go in until it's time to not go in anymore.
Yeah.
We work on a lot of small properties. They're 20 acres and under. I work on a lot of those. 40 acres and under seems to truly be somewhere between 40 and 25 is what I have the most of that I've been on. Okay. So those seem to be the ones where we can really manipulate the travel and the holding power by just sheer quantities of scrapes and the right food in the right places, food plots, water, all the things that you would use on a bigger farm. You cram them on a small place and you get the same result in a smaller area.
So how big are you making this half circle? Like say, because I'm going to be doing a lot of preseason work these next few weeks.
Yeah.
How big? Like if I said, hey, I'm going to this 7-acre piece that I've got. How big should I make?
It could possibly be the full corner to corner. It could be a full arc, the whole prop. It could be the whole thing.
Yeah.
Potentially. And it really will depend on what you find. And you should kind of already know where you're going to go and what you're going to key on, the areas you're going to be in.
Yeah.
So you may have more than one of those half circles or semicircles, and they may overlap. So now what you've done is you've created this buffer zone and you've crossed another one through the buffer zone. So now you've created a double buffer. Mm-hmm. And if you create one more of those away from that on the opposite end of that, now the center of that, you've created a scrape line that goes like this. It goes down this way and across on the center like that. Okay. And what they do is they get in that pattern and they go bing, 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 back and forth, and they won't quit. They can't get out. They're done. They're stuck. And now look, now you come out here, you've got the buffer zone out here on the outside, right? So they're all just hanging out in there. Well, you've got scrapes all along the outside of that out here. So now they're going bang around that whole outside, and then they jump inside. And now they're all over that whole thing. So when do they have time to lay down? They don't.
No.
You know, when they lay down, they lay down all right. They lay down at night in the dark. They don't travel they're on their feet during the day. So your 7-acre chunk needs to have a huge amount of scrapes to keep them there, right? They got to stay occupied. They spend very little time in each individual scrape. 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes working a licking branch in a scrape. And if you've only got 5 scrapes on your property, they're there 15 minutes and they're out of there. They're on to the neighbor's place. So if you give him 75 scrapes to work, he's there half the day. So he's bound to be there he's there at some point while you're sitting there. I'm guessing you're hunting in some kind of a urban area. Is it urban?
Well, not really. I mean, so the 7-acre piece, believe it or not, is like out in the middle of nowhere. It's my grandparents' property. And
okay.
the tricky part with it, so I was actually talking to Kurt from Working Class about food plots and stuff over there today. And I was explaining to him that the entire property is nothing but hardwoods, except for one spot. It's like maybe a 1/4 acre. I call it a field. It's really just a clearing. And that's where I'm going to put the food plot at. But the way that this property is set up is it's kind of like, imagine a long rectangle with the top part slanted. And then around it, it is hundreds and hundreds of just hardwood acreage. The issue there, though, is that there's hunters all the way around there. There's hunting clubs on the other side. There's a timber company on the other side that people hunt. Across the street, there's a hunting club. And the neighbor hunts. He helped me drag out the deer back here. I mean, it's very heavily pressured. But what I did notice last year and the year before is I made 2 mock scrapes that they did hit. They just didn't stick to it. It was like the last couple of weeks of October, the first week or 2 of November, and they were hitting those scrapes. And then it just fizzled out. So on that piece, doing the method you were just talking about, I could do it. I was already thinking of spots that I could do it at. The only problem is with where they come from in wind direction, I don't know how I'd get away with it, to be honest. And that's what I wanted to ask you is like, if you've got that many scrapes and you're on these smaller properties, how are you getting away with all of this with the wind direction?
Because once you establish the scrape line, all these licking branches and all this stuff, you're going to do this in a weekend. You're going to have all these scrapes done in a weekend. And then you don't have to go back to those branches again and do anything else to them for at least 2 months. You can stay away from them. You don't have to do anything to them. The deer are going to start this whole thing on their own. Your cameras are going to tell you when it's time to go back, because they're going to start what'll happen is the hottest scrapes, your communal scrapes, will stay hot. I mean, they will continually get pictures, but all those other scrapes that are outside on the edges, your satellite scrapes, will start to tick down. That the activity will start to slow down a little bit. So then you go back out, you hit them again, which is normally for us, I recommend to people every 6 to 8 weeks. So 2 months, 2.5 months, and then just be done with it. And I do, like I said, never mind the scrape on the ground for the bulk of this stuff. Just as you're walking from scrape to scrape, just down around your waist, you just hold that scrape magic down around your waist and hit the branches as you walk by, and you don't even stop walking. Just 3-4 missed as you walk another 40 yards, missed, keep on going. Put it on your boots, throw it on a drag behind you and walk behind you. Tony had a deer follow him right to the ladder of his box blind because he got it on him.
That's so wild to me. I've tried that. Like, I've been in the stand before and I've taken you've heard of scrape juice before? Dennis Lewis? Yeah. So I had some of his stuff because our local gas station just sells an entire wall of it. And this was a couple years ago, but I bought a bottle just to try it out. And was listening to a podcast and somebody was talking about, if, or actually, you know what? I think Dennis is, yeah, I've had Dennis on a couple of times. It might have been from him, but somebody told me a story, or I heard a story where they sprayed the bottom of their boots and they were walking, like before they walked to their stand, they were walking to their stand and a buck was literally following them as they were going. And he was like, yeah, don't do that. He's like, if you spray this on your boots and you're walking, watch your back. So I tried it. I didn't see anything, but I may have not done it correctly. I mean, I don't know. And that's the thing is like getting a good understanding of what to do with these scrapes is crucial, because in my opinion, it's like, and what you're saying makes sense, because in my opinion, if you can get these deer to be comfortable and have a natural thing that they want to go to and be like, okay, obviously there's a lot of deer activity in here. Deer do like to stay together most of the time, at least the does do. And, I've seen wherever the does are at, the bucks are going to be at,
Right.
So it makes sense. And the hourglass idea, I mean, that I never would have thought of that. That never crossed my mind.
And here's one of those drags right here. I just took it out of one of the packages.
Okay.
It's they're limp. I mean, they're just soft. They work great for wicks. You just soak these things in Scrape Magic. You just douse them down with this stuff and just throw it on the ground behind you or hook it on your pant leg and just let it go behind you. Hook it under your boot, your laces, and just let it go beside your foot. Walk on it, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just they will follow along. I guarantee it. I keep telling everybody that I talk to, if you just would just get a bottle.
Yeah.
You're gonna go, oh my God, where has this been my whole life? Because your neighbors are gonna hate you, I promise you, if you use
I'm
this.
cool with it.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Do you have any access on any of them properties around you? Are you allowed on there other than to retrieve game?
Yeah. So the 7-acre piece, I actually have, or I did. I haven't talked to the neighbor in a while. I don't think he'd care, but I have walked around there a few times. I can't really access it directly. I could start. So the tough part about this 7-acre spot is I have one point of access. And that has bit me in the butt in the past. As far as scouting goes, I could take the normal path I go and then break left, or I could break right and then sort of circle back around. I have done that in the past. My 1-acre spot that is the power line, I could just walk around all of that. They all know that I'm hunting over there, so none of that matters. And then, so I've got 3 spots. The first 2 I just said, and then the third spot where I had 8 different bucks at last year. Okay. I started hunting it mid-season, so I didn't mess with any scrapes. I didn't need to because literally they were just showing up, and I'm like, oh, it'll be a no-brainer. Didn't work out that way. But as far as access there goes, I do have 2 points of access that I could use. So if I did do like you were talking the drag line, I've got one spot I can walk behind the church, and then I've got another spot that I could go behind this guy's house who we have permission at and walk up through the woods and then break left and go to the spot, which is the direction they come from.
Right. And that's the whole point is if you can get into these other properties where you're not actually allowed to hunt, where you can't hunt it, but if you can get up into those properties on the deer trails where you find 2 trails that one's going, say, east and west and the others are going north and south or something similar to that, and you make a mock scrape inside there, you start one at an intersection like that on an overhang and then lead those deer right down the path to your property. And you go to the next corner and do the same thing. And then what you've done is pulled them in from every corner into your place. And now you've drugged them all off the neighbors into your buffer zone. And they're not going to go back unless your neighbor has something spectacular. And if those deer come to my place, they're not leaving. Yeah. Because we're giving them everything they want. When they get there, they're like, oh, I should have moved here a long time ago. Because they normally don't, we don't lose a lot of deer on our bigger, you know what I mean? On the places that are big enough to hold deer consistently, they don't leave. Now you just said 1 acre. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that actually is the place that those does were bedded across the street. I've seen them up. So it's kind of like a neighborhood almost on a lake. And I'd drive in and I'd see them. And sometimes they would follow me down the road to go to this spot. Other times they would just be bedded off in the woods. They don't really move around too much there. So it is 1 acre I have permission to hunt on, but it's probably more like 100 to 200 acres that it all encompasses, you know?
Yeah, I got
Um,
you.
yeah. So I don't know. It's one of those weird spots where I've tried. It's kind of like my testing grounds, you know,
Yeah,
and where I sort of be like, all right, this stuff works, this stuff doesn't. So that's what I was saying. Like the access stuff over there, man, I've got like 4 different points of access to that one spot.
yeah,
So I could definitely do that. The easy part is they usually use the power lines anyway for travel. They come
yeah,
down it and then they go back up it. So
yeah.
they're kind of already there. I just my thing with it was I need them to be there like when I'm there, you know.
Right,
And I
right.
still haven't found I guess a scrape product or a scent product that if I and maybe I've just been doing it wrong, right? But if I show up to go hunt and then I spray like say doe and estrus, it's November, right? And I just spray some doe and estrus. Everybody's always like, "Oh, if you spray this, man, it'll bring bucks in,"
Yeah,
all at the same time. I've never seen that.
yeah, because that's
So
not true. That's because it's
exactly.
not true. It just isn't true. It doesn't happen that way at all. I mean, it
Mhm.
doesn't happen that way if a real doe goes in there and takes a leak that's hot.
Yeah,
We'll have bucks come running from every direction. So why would something that somebody put in a bottle cause that? You know what I mean?
marketing.
Um, the our scrape magic is a year-round thing. There's no rut thing. There's none of that. I do have an estrus, synthetic urine now. And it's truly, it's because everyone wanted it. Everybody
Mhm.
asked, everybody asked. So I said, okay, fine. So here you go. We have it. But the scrape magic is the ticket. It is the magic. That's why it has that name. I was using it and I was going through pictures one day, couldn't come up with the name for it. We'd been testing, and was going through videos and pictures one day, and I looked at my wife and I said, "My God, this stuff is like magic." And I went, "Ha, that's the name, Scrape Magic," and it just stuck, man. So,
I mean, it's a catchy name. It's
yeah,
definitely a catchy name. I think the interesting thing to me about all of this is the fact that you are doing it different, and like, I really, I mean, do you have an opinion on like why when people talk scrapes, they're always kind of saying the same thing and that no one really seems to work out of the box? Is it because we sort of have fallen into like this dynamic of okay, this worked for me a couple of times, so I'm just going to keep doing it, or are
yep,
we just too comfortable? Like, because to me, it's like if like in my position, I'm using this stuff and I'm not really seeing the results that I want, except at one or two places.
yep.
I mean, even on public land, I had a spot. I still technically still do, but I made a mock scrape last July and already had deer hitting it,
Yeah.
and it's like, dude, why though? Like I want to know why that specific spot was intriguing to these deer because I only made one, you know.
Be-
Um,
because July is the right time to make a mock scrape. That's deer use licking branches and all of that stuff year round.
mhm,
That's why I would, if you were to ask me when should I start mock scrape, right now. As soon as we're done talking, if it's still daylight and you got time, go do it.
yeah,
That's how much I think you should do it right away.
yeah,
Don't wait. You should have already done it. Why don't you have some going already? That you already do though, see? So you've got that one good scrape going, that communal scrape that will keep the rest of your scrapes active. If you because let's be realistic, most guys aren't like me. They're not in the woods 365 days a year or whatever it is because they can't. You know what I mean? They're not able to, right?
yeah.
You
I wish.
Most guys aren't as I'm very lucky. I
Yeah,
can spend as much time as I need to in the woods to do what I'm doing. But and I get it. Everybody's got a job. Most guys got to go to work. They got to deal with families.
hmm
Oh well, why aren't you going out this weekend? Well, I got to do something. They have kids or whatever it is. There's there's always reasons why guys can't do it, but then there's also a lot of guys that make a lot of excuses why they can't do it.
yeah,
Laziness is usually the big one. They want it to happen right away. And if they do it wrong, it's not going to happen at all.
Yep. That's a big thing, man, that I've noticed too, is like I had this discussion with Brett from Blue River Bow Hunting last week talking about broadheads, where it's like we want that instant gratification. We want that one singular broadhead that's just going to kill them right there like a rifle would. Or if it doesn't, it's going to leave a 30-foot wide, blood trail. And like, we just don't, there is nothing out there like that. And there probably never will be.
No, the early testing days of Rage ruined guys for huge blood trails, because when they first started testing those things, their blood trails were just mammoth, and that's how they sold them. That's why they were mammoth. That's how they sold them,
Well, I shoot the mega meat, and those blood trails are insane. But even then, like, as good of a broadhead as that is, as much as I tell people to try it out, last season, my buddy shot one of his bigger bucks with a mega meat. You know how long we tracked that deer for? A mile. A mile. Yeah. Because now granted, it wasn't the broadhead's fault. It was coyotes. But still, we were looking for blood. What happened was where he hit him, it just didn't bleed enough until about 30 yards up out of the woods onto this little dirt path. It happens. So
sometimes it happens, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the thing that we as hunters, as a general consensus, run into. There's a lot of lazy hunters. I've fallen into that sometimes. It's 120 degrees outside. I'm not going out there. Like, I'm just not. But I should.
Well, we don't have to see we're the other extreme of that. If it's 25 below and the wind's blowing 25 miles an hour, I'm not going out in that.
Crazy. Yeah, y'all have been having some crazy weather lately, man.
I live right where that massive ice storm was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got quite a bit of damage very local to us. Yes.
Wow.
We luckily right where I live did not get a ton of damage.
Yeah.
But within 10 miles of here, it's catastrophic.
No, I've heard. My buddy Brock lives up there. I don't remember what city, but he was telling me about it, and he's like, dude, the ice storms, he sent me a video of it. It's insane.
Yeah. It's like nothing anybody's ever seen.
Yeah. Somebody pissed God off because he's taking it out on us right now with this weather.
Man. I'm telling you what. It's not good.
All right, so is there anything else? What other out of the box ideas do you have with making scrapes? So you're saying if someone wants to go make a scrape right now, to do it, but don't paw at the ground, just spray the branch.
Right. If I'm going to open the ground up underneath it, it's the width of my boot. I make a couple kick marks underneath it with my boot just to open bare dirt. And that's it. I don't do anything else to it. I don't put anything in it. I don't pee in it. I don't do nothing.
Are you using unscented boots? Are you making sure there's no human scent?
Look, that's the other thing. I'm also the exact opposite of most guys there. I don't use scent control. I don't wear gloves. I handle all my stuff barehanded.
Wow.
I've been known to hold my hemp ropes in my mouth while I worked on branches barehanded. Yeah, I do that. Throw them under my arm and hold on to them. Throw them between my legs and hold them. Honestly, the deer really don't care. They could give a rat's ass.
So you're kind of going the John Eberhart route then, not even worrying about.
Well, yeah, but please don't compare me to him.
Okay,
that's fine.
I'm sorry.
Please don't compare me to him. But either way, yes, I am that. Yes, I don't do that whole scent control thing. None of that. I'm not. It is what it's.
I got you.
To me, it's a waste of time, waste of money. There are certain. That said, there are certain deer that I've run into, certain bucks that I've chased, that I have had to wear gloves because I've watched them on video shy away, and it was a direct result of me barehanding something, and it was something that only got touched by my bare hand, and that got that reaction. So I immediately started wearing gloves, and that stopped. But that is a very deer-specific thing, and it's only happened twice in the last 15 years.
That's so crazy. Because I've heard like Troy Pottinger on a podcast was saying he goes out in I think he hunts in Idaho, and he was saying when he makes mock scrapes and stuff that he's wearing like a full scent proof suit, middle of summer, 10 miles back, and I'm like, how are you not passed out on the side of a mountain, dude? Because it's like I've gone in the middle of summer, sweating, greasy from work, and I've gone in there and kicked dirt out from under the licking branch. I've sprayed a little bit in the dirt just because that's what I thought I had to do. And then I've had deer hit it. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
it's and maybe deer
And
are just region specific with that stuff. I don't know, but
no, it's
I wouldn't
and
think
honestly,
so.
what you'll get in response to that from people in general is, yeah, you're gonna get what kind of bucks do you have in your scrapes? Year and a half old, 2.5 year old,
Yep.
maybe the first 2 nights, but hang on a minute, give it another day or two, and the mature bucks are gonna come. I guarantee it, because that's the other thing that we're doing that I have a steady flow of videos and pictures of to share with everyone, and they're posted, most of them. And the deer that we killed this past season in 24, mature bucks far outweighed immature bucks killed and attracted to our products. I mean, it's just as simple as that. We attracted more mature bucks than we did young bucks to our sets. Killed more mature bucks than young bucks. Have one rope in particular in Ohio, one location. They killed 4 bucks in 6 days, mature bucks, and we had a fifth one patterned and on the sit. He was on the pattern and at the setup for 13 days in a row, and I couldn't get there to kill him. He was the fifth one, and had I been able to get there, we could have killed him on the 8th day. But I just could not get away to get there to hunt, and he's still there. He survived. So
Wow, that's wild. So, all right, I want to talk about the product because I've asked this question
yep.
to a couple other guys I've had on talking about scents and stuff. So the products are full synthetic, right?
Yep.
Okay. How do you get a deer scent in a synthetic scent, like the preorbital, the estrus? Because I remember one time I asked Dennis Lewis when he was on a couple of years ago. I was like, "How are you doing this? How are you making all this in bulk?" Because in my mind, you're gonna have to hold a bottle under a buck or something and just have them pee in it, or have a doe and estrus pee in it. You get the tarsal gland. Well, you can't. What do? Do you rub something on the tarsal gland? I just don't understand how it works.
All of the natural glands that you get from deer, anything that's a gland that comes from a deer that's a natural real gland, comes
Mhm.
from dead animals.
Okay,
Period.
that's
They
kind of what I
cannot
was thinking.
gather that. They cannot gather that stuff from live animals, because first off, the preorbital glands right in that tear duct.
Hmm.
So I can't imagine any animal going to hold still while you dig in there with an instrument and drag that all out of there.
Yeah, especially a whitetail.
Right. Right. So that every gland on a deer, they've got to get them after they're dead.
Hmm.
So, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that natural products, natural glands, and all that stuff don't work. I'm not even saying anyone else's stuff doesn't work, but
Hmm.
I am saying that it doesn't work as well as mine. That I am saying. Not ever going to knock another person's product.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
Because we've all got to get where we're going somehow, some way, and we aren't going to do that by not trying to knock each other down and get there first. It just isn't going to happen.
Yeah,
So,
which
yeah, we've
unfortunately
got
most of the hunting community doesn't understand.
the Scrape Magic is a fully synthetic preorbital that I've added some other stuff to create other instinctual behaviors, aggression, early aggression, and I'm talking early aggression, fighting amongst the bucks, fighting with antlers in
Wow.
August. Got it on video. We have it on video. Blood coming off antlers, fighting in August. Damage. I mean, serious damage to the racks, and then just some other things that they do instinctually to create and get these mock scrape, or they're not mock scrapes to them anymore. They've taken them and turned them into their own, and to them it's a natural scrape. So some of the stuff that's in there is creating instinctual behavior to prep that for them. If you've ever noticed, I don't know, and here's another one of those outside the box things that nobody talks about. If you go to a tree where you find a scrape, a deer's made a scrape, or you've created a mock scrape, and you look at your overhang, your understory of your little branches there, right, where your licking branch is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you start seeing bare twigs under there, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
They start to just appear. Lots of them, whole bunch of them will just appear, and you'll go there, there'll be a whole bunch, won't be there, and you go back the next time, there'll be 20 little bare twigs. And then you notice what else is happening. You go back the next time, there's 4 or 5 that are snapped and they're bent down like this. The rest of them are chewed kind of flat. Well, they get up there and they chew them and they mash them and then they leave them alone and they dry. And then they come back and they bite them again and they break them and they bend them so they can get up and rub that gland in there. So they can just work this way. And then if you look around on the ground under that licking branch, you'll find all those little broken off twigs. That's what all those are laying on the ground around your scrapes, is those licking branches. They're full of preorbital gland. Those little sticks are.
I never even thought for that.
Yeah. And we create that behavior, but we create it in June instead of August.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of behavior should be happening in August, September, when they really start to want to work scrapes. Well, we've got them doing that stuff May, June, July, way ahead of schedule. I want these deer I want them completely committed by the time the velvet comes off these bucks. I want them so committed that they've forgotten that they have to go chase does somewhere in the next 2 weeks.
So, I mean, how do you get to that point though with the synthetics? Without giving too much detail, obviously.
The thing is it's just a lot of trial and error. You know what I mean? You have to have understanding of what's going on in those animals' heads. You know, you can't I didn't just figure this out. I didn't come out of the toilet one morning and go, I just had a great idea. I'm going to create this and just create, you know what I mean? So it's been like I just told you, I made my first mock scrape in 1985. I've trapped my whole life. So I have a very good understanding of how glands work in general for all animals.
Yeah.
So that understanding, and then fast forward that into the deer, you use the natural stuff. That I used natural glands for quite a long time, and yeah, they work and they're great, and that's great. It's fine, they do, but I wanted something better. They would lose interest. These deer are losing interest without constant refresh. And I don't know that it's because they're washing away or what's going on. I don't know you know what I mean? I don't have an answer for that, but I do know they don't lose interest in this scrape magic. And that's why I wanted to come up with something that was constant and consistent. And that's what we've got. We get constant and consistent activity and action.
Man, I can't wait to try it. I'm so excited for that.
Generally, you know, we get a lot of people ask, well, how soon, how fast does it happen? How long does it take before deer come? And I normally tell people, within 48 hours, you'll have your first visit. Is no longer than that normally. And sometimes it's an hour. Sometimes it's 2 hours. Sometimes it's 6. It's generally the general time span is somewhere between 6 and 12 hours is the first visit. Sometimes it's one deer. Sometimes it's a gang of deer, does and fawns. Sometimes it's a buck. The first visit's a buck. Generally, the first visit to one of our new locations, new setups, is a night picture, is a night visit. The next visit might be nighttime, but not likely. It's probably going to be daytime. And then you'll realize quickly that these deer have stopped coming during the night. They're only here on camera during the day. We have Moultrie has this fancy little thing on their camera. It tracks all your data for you, like the Wise Eye cameras do.
I love it. Yeah, I use it all the time, even in the off season.
Right. Well, all of our tracking data shows that our visits on specific locations where we've set up to check, the first visit is, say, at like 6:15 or 6:30 in the morning. Then it goes up and it peaks. The peak visits, the most visits and the most deer that are there at one time, is between 10:30 and 12:30 a.m. to p.m. And then it drops a little bit, and then we get another peak at 3:30 to 5:30. Our last visit is at 6:30, and then all of our cameras that are in that general area are dead, and they're all cells. So these deer are walking location to location. Well, then they go dead because they've laid off. They've gone and laid in the buffer zone. They didn't leave. They just laid down in the buffer zone for the night. And depending on moon, weather, things like that, they may get up, time of the year. If it's really hot, they'll get up in the night and you'll see them on camera then again. Down where you're at, July, August, I'm sure they'll be on their feet in the night, especially if they have water.
Yeah, that thankfully, I'm pretty sure all my spots have water close by. So I haven't seen any. Even last year, we had really heavy temperatures, and it was killing me because I cut grass on the side, and I about passed out a few times. And I remember sitting in my truck with the AC blasting, still super hot. And I'm like, how are these deer even surviving this? And it's nuts. So you're probably right. I mean, dude, I'm just so interested in this. Like, how have people not caught on to this?
Well, and the thing is they have, and there are a lot of guys that have big names that are talking about it now. So that's kind of driving the interest in it. It's been and the reason you haven't heard more about it is because it's been a pretty well kept secret, because it is a big deal. I mean, it's honestly probably one of the things that I lean on a new property. Mm-hmm. I lean on it the hardest when I go on to one. If it's my own personal place to hunt, it is the first thing that I do when I get there is I set the perimeter up with scrapes and licking brand. Immediately, I walk the whole perimeter of it and just crank it up with scrapes. And then we go from there. We add water, we add food. We just got a new lease that we finally can get into. We got trying to remember the landowner just told it's in Mansalona, by the way, Michigan, which is east of here. Mm-hmm. And they had this winter 267 inches of snow, I think, is what we ended up with over there.
Good Lord.
Yeah, roughly 20 feet is where we ended up for the season. Obviously, that wasn't all standing in one time.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it was.
Look, I just got to pause you right there for all the Georgia boys listening who freaked out about that 8 inches we got back in January. Be happy we don't have 20 foot of snow in the entire season.
8 inches is
crazy.
8 inches of snow for us is a Tuesday.
Normally. Oh yeah, I mean I'm from Illinois, right? So like when I see that, I'm like, oh, that's nothing. But they shut down the whole state when that happens.
Oh, I got we killed a really nice buck out of Florida this year. It was our first buck that Scrape Magic killed in Florida. Super nice 8-point, like 5-year-old buck. He's just blown away by the results that we're getting in the South with this stuff, because the South's a tough deal, man. Scrapes are hard to make work in the South.
Yeah.
And without going into a whole lot of detail here right now live, I've figured some things out with the help of some guys down there that I'm going to change some things in the South. As soon as I can get my boots on the ground down there somewhere on somebody's place, we're going to light some things up. And native pride sense, or whatever they're called, they got some competition coming, and it's me.
Hey, well, if you come down here to Georgia, let me know and I'll come help out. I've got two public land spots 10 minutes from where I live right now that there's some hammers out there. So if you were able to figure out how to get these deer to funnel in, and I wanted to ask you about that. So like we've been talking about private land stuff and all that, but with public land being I have one by me that's 6,000 acres, and I've pretty much in my head and on the ground have mapped about a quarter of it with about 5 or 6 different spots in there.
Okay.
Having said that, I can only think of 2 spots that have actually had scrape activity.
Okay.
Neither of which are close to each other. So going on public, like tomorrow, I'm going to go pull my cameras off of there if I have time. I'm going to be looking for different scrape spots.
Yep.
What do you think it's harder to like kind of funnel those deer into one hub area on public? I mean, it is bigger. It is public land.
6,000 acres is a lot. That's a huge chunk of land.
Yeah.
That's 10 squares basically.
Yeah.
So basically what it amounts to is you need to go into the area. You found 2 areas that have scrape activity, but they're not close to each other. Well, how far apart are they? What's in between there? You know what I mean? How is it really far between them? So it's
probably like
probably
a half a mile between the two, to be honest.
right. And honestly, it's truly probably a lot of the same bucks hitting both places. Just there's nothing in between to cause them to stop to work scrapes.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That's the crazy part about public that I personally love, because it's almost like hunting multiple different places.
Well, and the thing is that I do hunt a place in Indiana that's very much like that, where you'll find one area that's just lit up with activity, scrapes, rubs, all that stuff. And then you'll walk 200 yards through the woods and edges and all that, not find anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing you know, you find another bunch of rubs and scrapes, and bam, you've hit another big patch like you're talking about. But it's like the in between is like just a wasteland of nothingness.
Yeah.
So I understand, and I guess my mind tells me that I would go through that nothingness and wasteland and create something out of it myself, back and forth. I'd go 2 separate lines, one back and you know what I mean, and have 2 connecting lines. It'd be almost like an entrance exit, but just 2 separate deer trails is what it would amount to. I'm not shy with spraying the underbrush to lead the deer where I want them to go. Because once they get a smell of it and they get that scrape magic in their nose, it's a remembered thing. They'll walk, even if they hit one over here and it's 500 yards from another one and they don't do anything else in between. They hit that scrape, they get over here and you've hit one and they find that, they're going to go to it if they smell it on the wind, because they're going to remember it. And they're going to think, now, how did that deer get why is he way over here? And right to it immediately. So it's it's kind of part of the deal. It's kind of part of the system and the plan.
So I'm going to be getting my steps in, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Good. I need it bad. No, it's just, public land has been so difficult the past few years. I mean, like I said, I had one honey hole spot. I ended up getting 2 cameras stole out of there, so I guess it's not really a honey hole spot anymore. But that was always where I set up a scrape. That was the first place I'd go. And the reason being is I saw a 160-inch deer over there 4 years ago that was coming to the scrape. And I've told the story 1,000 times on the podcast, but long story short, I didn't realize it was a deer. I thought it was a squirrel because that's all I was seeing. Yeah. And I did a calling sequence. I hear a twig snap behind me, and me not thinking, I just whip around the tree, and here he is, just, 26-inch spread, huge 10-point, biggest buck I've ever seen in my life. And he's just staring at me, and I'm like, crap. And then he just ran off 30 yards and turned around and looked at me and was like, later, dog, and just was gone. Never saw him again. So public land's the bane of my existence right now. But I think with the scrape magic stuff and all of that and everything you've said in this episode, I've learned a lot, and I'm definitely going to be trying a lot of this stuff. What would you say, and maybe you've already said it, but what would you say for anyone who's listening? It's like, all right, I don't want to do all this, going out when it's hot. I don't want to do all these, multiple different scrapes and make the hourglass and make a hub and all this stuff. For the lazy hunter, what would you say is the most important thing for them to do if they were to use the scrape magic?
Well, most of those guys, and a lot of that, I don't even know that I would call those guys lazy hunters. Most of those guys are deer hunters that hunt during deer season. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, opening days next weekend, I better get my bow out and give it a couple shots, make sure we're good. Got to get the old rifle out, the .6 out, and shoot a couple rounds, make sure we're still hitting where we should. So those guys are going to hunt out of, they have set stand sites the bulk of the time. That guy's ladder stand has been in the same tree for 25 years. So he's going to go in. He's got a food plot probably right there and a feeder, I would bet. So you go in, you find an entrance coming in, and you hang a rope right there to get those deer to at least come in and stop. You know exactly how far he is because you can pace it off and hang it there and make him stop. position it so he has to turn perfect for the shot. There's, you know what I mean? That's what I'm telling those kind of guys to do. The bow hunters, especially, you can position these deer and make them stop exactly how you want them, quartered, however, doesn't matter. You can make them do it. The poison ivy that we have is a little more suited for that because it's got a rope and a vine coming out of the end that you can position. They're stiff, and you can position them and position the whole thing to create this, because deer always approach this stuff the same way every time. They always make a big arc and come in. So if you're looking out of your stand and you're looking at your vine or your rope and it's facing like this direction, that deer's going to come in, and it's either going to come in and face you, or it's going to come in, it's going to be ass into you. You're going to be staring at his ass. So you want it so that you're looking at it crossways. So that deer is going to come in like this, and bang, he's broadside. He's going to come this way, bang, he's broadside. If he comes a little far this way, he's quartered away. He's quartered. If he gets a little quartered to you, just wait a second, he's going to move again. So it's all about positioning and making them come the way they're going to come that way every time. It's an instinct. It's how always downwind. They circle downwind, and that's all it is a scent check as they come around. You'll see them lip curl. That's a lot of stuff that guys don't usually get to see until they get to use a product like this that is making these deer do what they naturally do anyway, but they're doing it right in front of you. You know, most guys don't get to watch a deer come in and work a licking branch and lip curl and do the actual sequence. Most guys don't ever get to see that from the stand.
I've seen it once.
Right.
Like literally one time.
Right.
That's crazy.
And I watched it. I can't tell you even how many times I watched it in Kentucky last year when I was there. You know, I was there for 5 days, and I probably watched 20 bucks work 2 different scrapes in front of me.
Jesus.
While I was there. So it's just a matter of you got to get the right spot. It's about location. You hit the wrong spot, you're going to get the wrong you're going to get the wrong results. But if you hit the right spot,
I've done.
You're going to get the right results, and you're going to get, and if you hit the sweet spot, and you hang everything the way that it should be hung, and you use the right sense, you're going to get results that are going to just make your head go. You're going to be like,
that's what I want.
Good.
So, all right, before we wrap this up, I do need to ask you this. Because we kind of touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but I want to circle back to it. Say I'm going to, all right, let's just use public land as an example, because that's the most amount of ground that I've got just to play on. I can literally go anywhere on there.
Yeah.
What terrain features have you noticed that these scrapes are popping up at the most? If you're out there scouting, where are you going to first? Say you e-scout a public land spot you've never been to, and you see a ridge system, or you see a creek bottom, or you see a field or whatever. What terrain feature are you looking for to, I guess, start this, or maybe find a scrape that's already been made?
Honestly, the first place I'm going to look for scrapes and that kind of stuff when I get to somewhere, when I get there, is where I park. If I go to public land, when I get out of the car or the truck or whatever, and as soon as I walk in, I'm going to get 30 yards, 40 yards inside that entrance of that place, and I'm going to start to look, because you're going to start to find scrapes way out there. Because everybody wants to you got to get way back in public, man. Didn't you know that? You got to go 8,000 miles back, find the biggest, ugliest ravine you can hunt out of, and kill a deer in the bottom of it, or you did it wrong.
Yeah, I've argued that so many times, and I have seen proof that's not true.
That's where I start to look, is at the beginning. And then I've obviously, like you just said, I've looked at it on OnX or on something to see. And I look for creek bottoms first. And then you look for the ridge tops and the creek bottoms, and then you're going to look for saddles in between. And those saddles normally aren't saddles at all. What they are is logging roads that cruise that timber on these old, especially in places like Georgia, West Virginia, the Appalachian area. There's a lot of those old logging roads through those areas, and they're normally between the ridge top and that creek bottom on a bench, because that was the easiest place to build roads. So that's where I'm looking for, is that area. And we touched on this in the very beginning about high ground, low ground. There's the mistake guys make is they try to work the bottom or they try to work the top. They're missing everything in between because those biggest, maturest bucks don't walk back and forth across that. They're playing the thermals and they're climbing up and down. They're not walking the bottom or the top. They're crosswalking that whole hillside on an uphill slope and a downhill slope, but up and down like that across that following that thermal. So if you've got a buck in the bottom that's hitting a scrape, you've got a scrape in the bottom that you make it. Okay. It's your mock and it's a good scrape. They're hitting it all the time. It's consistent, but you make one up at the top, you can't get them to hit it. Nothing's hitting it. You get one here, you get one there. It's just not working. So now what you need to do is you need to come somewhere between there, take that bottom, go from that great scrape and head right to that side hill, to the bank. Find the first overhang at that edge, make one there, just the branch, not the ground, just the licking branch. Now go up that bank on an angle, find another one, spray it, lead that deer to the top, but make sure you're going to your scrape, towards your scrape, so that when you get to the top, he'll come to the top and want to know where that, and he's got the thermal one way or the other, depending on what time of day he's there, he still has it. And he's going to chase it over the top. And when he comes up, he's going to follow down to the scrape because you've led him right to it. Well, now it's going to become an everyday thing. He's going to go up and down that same trail that you made. There wasn't a trail there until you made it.
Yeah.
So that's the long and short of dragging one from the bottom to the top. You don't have to drag them top to bottom because they do that naturally. They want to do that. But from the bottom to the top is not quite as easy.
I have so many spots in my head right now. I'm just thinking like, oh, okay, I can check there. Dude, that is wild, man. Yeah, no, you were right when you told me that you were gonna blow my mind on this stuff. It's happening. I can feel my my brain coming out of my ears right now. Dude, that is wild. But cool. Well, James, I appreciate you coming on here, man. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything that we need to cover now. There's obviously a whole lot more we could talk about, you know what I mean? Because this is a huge subject that can be branched off, and there's little pieces that we can talk about specifically, and it's but yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again. I'm sure this won't be our conversation.
We're gonna have to do another episode later, either this summer or sometime during season, and do like an update so I can tell you and everybody else what's been going on with these scrapes. And see what you're seeing too. Because I mean, we never know everything, right? We're always learning every year. And I got humbled very, very heavily last year with 8 shooter bucks and only seeing 1 on the hoof. And that son of a dude, he never gave me a shot until it was too dark and he was behind a pile of brush that there was a hole this big. And I saw right behind his shoulder and I'm like, oh, dude, I could try it, but it's already dark. It's a Monday. I probably shouldn't do this.
It's a Monday.
Yeah, it was one of those sits, man. Well, look, tell everybody where they can find you, man. I know that you're on TikTok. Where else can they find you?
We're on all the social media platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Don't do the Twitter thing.
No one does.
And obviously, you can do the scrapedoctor.com is where you can get all the stuff. My contact information is on there on every social media platform. If people want to get a hold of me, you know what I mean, directly, I'm not hard to get. Any phone, all the phone numbers that you find anywhere are direct. They're mine. It's my number. So if someone calls, they get me. They don't get someone else saying, well, he'll call you back.
Yeah.
So
they get direct customer service.
I might not answer the phone and then call you back, but you're not going to have somebody else answering. So, nice, but yeah, we've got that, like I said, the scrapedoctor.com, and then we do have a few retail locations, nothing near you yet. We got a store in Florida now. So yeah, and a few in Michigan and Indiana and Ohio. So.
Nice, man. Well, I will definitely talk to my local shop when I take my new bow up there in a few weeks, and I'll say,
Yeah.
hey, y'all need to get in contact with this guy, check it out. And they don't listen to me usually, but I'm gonna try anyway. So
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see if we can make it happen.
yeah. No problems at all.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again for coming on. My brain hurts, and I'm really looking forward to using this stuff. I'm feeling pretty confident about it. So I'll probably be blowing you up with questions when I go to do it. But yeah, man, I think it sounds legit. I mean, again, I love scrapes, and everything you said makes sense. So
Yeah.
everyone that's listening needs to go try out Scrape Doctor products, because it sounds like there's a better understanding and a change coming with scrapes, that it's not just the same old thing that people have been doing, that it's time to start really thinking out of the box, you know?
Yep. And that's, and I tell people that a lot. You can't keep doing the same old thing and want new results. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's the definition of insanity.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate you having me on and taking the time to put us out there like that. Yeah. So we'll do another one as soon as you
good, man.
come up with another topic. We'll do something closer to season.
Yeah, definitely not the Rompola buck though. That one's staying dead, I think.
Yeah, I'm all done with that. I'm not doing any of those. Look,
No,
man, I don't mind a little controversy, but I also don't, you know what I mean? I'm not about putting myself out there just to get beat up because of what I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I've flip-flopped on that deer so many times, dude, that I'll tell you more about it when we get off of here, but I have seen both sides, both extremes, and I honestly want no part of it anymore. So that deer is staying dead, whether real or not, as far as I'm concerned.
Fact.
Awesome, man. Well, until next time.